Have you ever looked at a big company, one that seems really solid on the outside, and just wondered what's actually going on in there?
Mhm.
Or maybe, can I really truly trust how this place operates?
Well, today we're going to try and peel back some of those layers. We're looking at the human element that actually holds up even the most complex systems. We're doing a deep dive into something called the control environment. It's a really core piece of internal control, particularly in the COSO framework, the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations standard. Our mission basically is to unpack how a company's leaders, the people right at the top, set the ethical tone, the operational tone. And we're drawing on some great material here, especially from Farhat lectures. So if you've ever been curious about how organizations really work deep down, I think you'll find this interesting. But hang on, before we properly dive in, just a quick reminder. This deep dive, it's based on material from Farhat lectures. So all the content, the examples, the explanations we're discussing, they're all derived from the really comprehensive accounting resources over at farhatlectures.com.
Whether you're maybe an accounting student prepping for the CPA exam or already a professional, you should definitely visit the website. They've got extra practice questions, video lectures, loads of support to really cement what we talk about today. And yeah, a special thanks to Professor Farhat for providing this valuable material. Okay, so let's get into it. This control environment, what actually is it? Is it just jargon?
Well, it sounds a bit formal, maybe, but it's fundamental.
Yeah.
It's one of the 5 main components of internal control that the COSO lays out. Think of it simply as the tone at the top. It's really about the attitude, the behavior, the actions of the owners, the board, top management. How do they view internal control? How important do they genuinely think it is? It's not just policies on paper. It's what they do, their day-to-day signals.
Okay, tone at the top. That sounds really significant. But why? Why does it matter so much what the highest level people think or do? How does that filter down?
It matters massively. There's this concept often called the 10-80-10 rule. Have you heard of it?
I think so, but refresh my memory.
Okay, so the idea is roughly 10% of people are just, well, always ethical. They'll do the right thing regardless. Then you have another 10% on the other end who are, frankly, always going to look for ways to cheat the system. You can't really control them fully. But the critical part is the 80% in the middle. The vast majority, these people, they generally follow the lead. So if the leadership sets a strong ethical tone, that 80% will most likely follow. But if the tone is weak, or maybe even implies that cutting corners is okay,
Then that huge middle group drifts that way too.
exactly. They take their cues from the top. That's why the control environment is absolutely paramount. It pretty much dictates the company's overall ethical direction.
So leadership isn't just managing tasks, they're actively modeling behavior.
Wow. And I guess when that modeling goes bad, the results can be, well, pretty disastrous. Let's maybe make this concrete.
Sure.
There's a really powerful, unfortunately, real-world example. Wells Fargo Bank. Oh, absolutely. Wells Fargo, particularly what happened between, say, 2011 and 2015, is almost a textbook case of a failed control environment. You had federal regulators finding millions, literally millions, of unauthorized bank and credit card accounts being opened.
Billions
Yeah.
just opened without permission.
Yes. It wasn't just a few bad apples. The whole thing was driven by incredibly aggressive internal sales targets. The bank wanted more fees, basically. It led to huge penalties. Something like 5,300 employees ended up being fired.
5,300 people.
Yeah. And former employees talked about this incredible demand from managers. One person, Sabrina, described managers yelling at them about quotas, turning a blind eye to things that were unethical, even illegal. They had things like the Great 8 initiative trying to push 8 different products onto every customer.
8 products per customer. That sounds intense.
It was. And it led to stuff like pinning, issuing ATM cards and PINs without the customer even asking, or creating fake email addresses like 1234 at wellsfargo.com just to push transactions through. The pressure was just constant. Daily sales calls 4 times a day sometimes.
That's staggering. Okay, so as we talk through the specific parts, the pillars of this control environment, everyone listening should probably keep that Wells Fargo situation in the back of their mind. It really shows how these ideas aren't just abstract, right? They have huge, real-world consequences. So, first pillar, if the tone at the top is the overall feeling, then management philosophy and operating style. That sounds like the day-to-day reality.
Exactly. This is maybe the most obvious sign of leadership's real attitude towards control. It's not the mission statement on the wall. It's how they actually run the business every single day.
Yeah.
Their actions, their behaviors, what they prioritize, what they tolerate, all of that trickles down. It influences middle management and eventually every single employee.
And going back to Wells Fargo, well, it seems pretty clear this pillar crumbled. Did management set unrealistic targets? Yeah, 4 sales calls a day. Were people pushed into aggressive, dodgy tactics? The grade 8, the pinning. Sounds like a definite yes. And did they turn a blind eye? Managers looking the other way when things got illegal. That speaks volumes about the actual operating style, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And for an auditor trying to understand a company, getting a real feel for this philosophy is critical. It tells them so much about the company's genuine stance. If that underlying tone, the unwritten rules, seem weak or even toxic, the auditor knows right away they need to dig deeper, be much more skeptical, because formal controls might just be getting ignored.
Okay, that makes sense. Pillar number 2 then, integrity and ethical values.
Right. And again, these aren't just nice words for the annual report. They genuinely shape how people see and use internal controls. What you're looking for here is there a really clear, well-understood message against, say, fraudulent financial reporting? Does everyone get it? And crucially, is there real accountability? When someone does breach those values, are they actually held responsible? Through dismissal, disciplinary action, something tangible.
That's interesting thinking about Wells Fargo again. People were fired eventually, but only after it all blew up publicly, right?
Exactly.
Which feels more like damage control than a sign of a proactive, ethical culture existing beforehand.
That's a really important distinction. It's the difference between cleanup and genuine principle. It's also about watching the leaders themselves. Do the board, the senior execs, consistently show high standards? Their behavior sends the strongest signal to that big 80% middle group we talked about. Code of ethics is great, but if it just sits in a drawer, it's pointless. It needs to be alive. Reinforced through training, talked about by leaders, maybe even requiring employees to sign off on it regularly. Otherwise, yeah, just a piece of paper.
A living document, not a relic. Got it.
Okay, third pillar, commitment to competence. This sounds a bit more straightforward.
It sounds it, but like the others, it has layers. Competence is basically having the right knowledge and skills for your job. Pretty simple. But this pillar is about whether management actually prioritizes that competence when they hire, when they promote, when they decide compensation.
So it's about avoiding favoritism. Exactly. That's the hidden depth. When personal connections or, just liking someone overrides their actual ability to do the job, even if that person isn't obviously harmful, it sends a message. It tells everyone else that doing a good job isn't what really matters most.
So it's not just the risk of one incompetent person making mistakes, it's a deeper cultural thing.
Yes, it erodes the whole foundation. It breeds cynicism, disengagement. If people don't have the skills, or worse, feel like cutting corners or being dishonest is tolerated or maybe even rewarded indirectly, well, the company just can't hit its goals effectively. On the flip side, good, honest, efficient people can often make up for weaknesses elsewhere in the system. So having really clear, fair policies for hiring, evaluating, promoting, paying people who are competent and trustworthy, that's essential for a strong workforce and therefore a strong control environment.
Okay. Next pillar involves the board of directors and the audit committee.
Yes, their role is absolutely critical in setting that control environment. They have significant oversight responsibilities. One of the first things an auditor wants to know is there an independent audit committee? Does it actually exist and function separately from management?
That's a key question, isn't it? How independent can they really be? Especially if they're appointed by or close to the management they're supposed to be watching. How do you even check that?
That's exactly what auditors dig into. We look for evidence. Is there open communication between the committee and the auditors, both internal and external? Does the audit committee itself actually hire the external auditor? That's a big indicator of independence.
So they control the hiring, not management.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
Do they approve non-audit services to avoid conflicts of interest? Are the members diverse in their skills? Do they have CPAs, finance experts, business leaders? And fundamentally, are they actively overseeing ethical standards? Are they challenging management when needed, or just sort of rubber stamping things? Their oversight is meant to be active, not passive.
Right. Active oversight. Okay. 5th pillar, the internal audit function. The company's own internal watchdogs.
Precisely. How effective this department is really depends on the support it gets from the top management, the audit committee, the board. A strong, well-supported internal audit team is a huge plus. For external auditors, it can save a lot of time and make the whole audit more efficient because they can rely on some of the internal team's work.
So what are the warning signs then? How do you spot a weak internal audit function? What are the red flags?
Well, you look at a few things. First, does management actually back them up? Do they have the budget, the authority they need to do their job properly, or are they starved for resources? Second, what's their official scope? Has the audit committee reviewed it to make sure they're looking at the right high-risk areas? Third, how independent are they really from senior management? Who do they report to? Ideally, it should be the audit committee directly, so their findings can't get squashed. High staff turnover in internal audit can also be a bad sign. It might suggest instability, poor morale, maybe just not enough people to do the work. And finally, probably most importantly, are their reports actually useful? Do they address the key risks? Do they get to the right people? And critically, does anyone act on them quickly? A brilliant report that just sits on a shelf is completely useless.
Yeah, actionability is key. All right, that brings us to the last pillar, organizational structure and accountability.
Yep. This is about the basic hierarchy, who reports to whom. CEO, VPs, managers, all the way down. And the defined relationships between all those roles. Having a clear structure actually helps auditors. It lets them understand how the business is managed, how different functions work, and crucially, how controls are supposed to operate within that structure.
Okay, so a clear org chart is helpful, but
Wow.
how does structure actually link to accountability in a practical sense? What does it mean for, making sure things get done right?
It's the framework that makes accountability possible. Management and the board, they're the ones responsible for setting clear expectations about internal control. But to actually ensure people meet those expectations, you need suitable structures. You need clear reporting lines. Think about it. How do you communicate rules? How do you monitor if people are following them? How do you enforce consequences if they're not? You need that defined structure to channel information, assign responsibility, and hold people accountable within their specific roles. Without clarity on who's responsible for what, control's just. They fall through the cracks. It becomes easy for everyone to assume someone else is handling it.
Wow, okay. That really ties it all together. That was a fantastic deep dive. It makes it so clear that the control environment, especially that tone at the top, really is the foundation, isn't it? It's like the ethical compass for the entire organization, set right from the leadership level and influencing everything below.
Absolutely. And understanding these 6 components, we talk about the philosophy, the ethics, competence, board oversight, internal audit, structure. It lets you look beyond the surface. You start to see the real operational health of a company. Where does the genuine integrity lie? Where are the controls actually strong versus just looking good on paper? It's about leadership's values and actions echoing down.
So thinking back to Wells Fargo and that kind of sobering 10-80-10 rule, it does make you think, doesn't it, about human nature, maybe, and the constant challenge for leaders to build truly ethical places, even if they have all the right systems. And maybe a final thought for you listening. When that tone at the top is broken, what role do individual employees play? Do they just go along with it, like maybe happened with some in 80%? Or do they push back? How does that work in reality? Perhaps think about organizations you interact with every day through that lens. And of course, if you want to dig even deeper into internal controls, definitely check out those comprehensive resources over at Farhat Lectures. Until our next deep dive, thanks for tuning in.